The video release you are about to view pertains to subject matter of a religious nature, so there will definitely be differences in opinions and even possibly hurt boo-boo kitties among you. The views and subjects shared in this release are not necessarily those of Living History's Mysteries or Ferocious Feline Productions, but were too curious and questionable to pass up. Viewer discretion is advised. I understand that, but it's still history. Hey guys and gals, it's your buddies Drew and Ralphie with Living History's Mysteries and Ferocious Feline Productions. You know, in that never-ending quest for history, you come to find at certain times that history on certain subjects is made up by rumors, it's made up by tales. There's more fiction than nonfiction in a lot of these subjects. And once again, as normal, I'm looking for something in particular, and I run across something that is so different that I had to touch on it. You know, I don't normally talk about politics or religion. Those are two no-nos for me.
Behold the great Queen Spider! Hail, Queen Spider! Queen Spider?
But I found some stuff on rumors of secrets held by the Catholic Church that I just had to tell.
This.
Check this out. This is good.
Welcome to one of the most mysterious places on the planet, which is shrouded in mysticism, scandals, and the attention of millions of believers. The Vatican, the center of global dominance of the multi-million religion of Catholicism. But what is hidden behind these walls? Now, we will delve into the symbolism of the Vatican and perhaps reveal some secrets that have been right in front of you. The Vatican is located on Vatican Hill, which, according to one version, received its name in honor of the Etruscan goddess of death, Vatican. In this place, there used to be the Circus of Nero, where, as a spectacle for the people and the emperor, the first followers of Christ died a painful death, torn apart by wild animals. the early Christians making it a symbolic place on its own. But this is just the beginning of our tour. Let's take a close look at the Vatican Audience Hall. Do you notice anything strange? The building resembles a sinister reptilian head. Interestingly, in the Bible, the serpent symbolizes cunning and deceit. But what is even more bizarre is the absence of Christian symbolism in this hall. Instead, there is a sculptural composition called the Resurrection on the stage, which resembles more of a depiction of hell. Doesn't that seem strange to you? Now, let's move on to the Pope's attire. It is worth noting that it's tailored in the only tailor shop which is inherited through generations. Each detail is meticulously crafted. There is no room for coincidence here. Have you ever paid attention to the details of the attire of the popes? You can see numerous details and symbols on the festive attire. For instance, the pallium is adorned with 6 dark crosses, 3 of which are pierced with gold pins. They symbolize the 3 nails with which Jesus was crucified on the cross. But what about the chasuble? On one of the chasubles of Pope Paul V, you can see an inverted cross, which is associated with the symbolism of the cross on which the first pope, Peter, was crucified. However, the inverted cross is also a symbol of Satanists. Doesn't this remind you of the ceremonial attire of magicians? And that's not all. One of Pope Francis's chasubles, you can also see a symbolic depiction of extraterrestrials from the Atacama Desert's geoglyphs. What higher Christian message is he conveying to us through this symbolism? We are told that the Pope wore the chasuble with this symbol in honor of his visit to Chile. But something doesn't add up here, because he wore this chasuble on other occasions as well. Let's also pause and talk about the spiral triangle that can be seen on several chasubles of pontiffs. This is a symbol of the international boy lover movement, pedophiles, the lovers of boys. Considering the numerous scandals and testimonies associated with pedophilia in the Catholic Church, seeing such a symbol on the Pope's attire does not seem like a random coincidence at all. Pope Benedict's red shoes caused outrage among parishioners. However, he refuted rumors that they were Prada shoes, stating that he wears on his feet the blood of Christ. Just think of it. The Pope wears the blood of the Son of God on his feet. An indispensable element of the Pope's attire is the ring of the fisherman. This ring is meant to remind the Pope of his heritage, that he is the successor of the Apostle Peter, who was a fisherman by profession. But let's not forget that Peter was the one who betrayed Jesus at the most critical moment, denying his association with him 3 times out of fear for his own life. It was not just betrayal, it was a rejection of Jesus himself and his teaching. Every time a new pope ascends to the throne, he must put his lips to his new ring as a sign of humility and readiness to continue the mission of Peter. But once again, we hear about the continuation of the mission of Peter rather than that of Jesus. This makes us wonder, what are the values that are conveyed through the ring of the fisherman? Some time ago, during liturgical ceremonies, popes would wear a tiara. It is a headpiece adorned with various symbols. Originally, the tiara consisted of 2 levels, symbolizing the pope's secular and spiritual authority. Later, a 3rd level was added. The 3 levels on the papal tiara symbolize his supremacy over the entire world. On the papal tiara, the title Vicarius Filii Dei is inscribed, which is translated from Latin as Vicar of the Son of God. In Latin, as well as in Greek, certain letters have numerical values. Researchers have noted that if you add up the numerical values of the letters in this title, the result is the number 666. Is even in the word vicarius. They argued that the correct record of this word would be vicarious because the Latin language does not have the ending vs, but there is an ending us. Sort of, it was a mistake made by the ancients who didn't differentiate between the letters V and U. However, despite asserting that it was just a harmless grammatical error, no one seems to be rushing to correct it. The Pope's staff also has a symbolic meaning. It is interesting to mention that the Pontiff Paul VI made changes to the design of the papal cross. He was the first to use a staff with a curved crucifix and a distorted figure of Christ. This cross has been passed on to all subsequent popes, including Francis. According to former Catholic priest Pierre Compton, such crosses were used by black magicians of the Middle Ages to represent the biblical concept of the mark or sign of the beast, and they represent an ancient satanic symbol. This raises questions about the role this symbol plays in modern church symbolism and its true origin and meaning. Let's also pay attention to the coats of arms of the Catholic clergy. Have you ever wondered what they symbolize? Take a look at this coat of arms. Does it remind you of anything? Perhaps a UFO. And that wouldn't be surprising. By the way, did you know that the Vatican owns the world's largest binocular telescope, called Lucifer? The papal throne has its own astronomers and consultants on UFO matters. The Vatican has its own space program, which is more informed and better technologically equipped than NASA. But let's get back to the symbolism of the coat of arms. Considering the Vatican's interest in the topic of extraterrestrials, what does this symbol mean? What is its true sacred significance? At the International Forum, Global Crisis, There Is a Way Out, in 150 languages, we presented a groundbreaking scientific hypothesis about how our world is actually arranged. This hypothesis explains complex processes at the quantum and beyond quantum levels. You might be surprised, but this hypothesis is directly related to what we see on such coats of arms and to the invisible physical processes this symbolism represents. Let's start by watching a video excerpt that presents this hypothesis. Another phenomenon, the nature of which our hypothesis explains, is electricity. Today, we all use electricity. We know that there is direct and alternating current, that there are electromagnetic waves and static electricity. But what electricity is in its essence, modern science cannot explain. For example, let's take an electrostatic machine. There is a paradox associated with it, which is an unsolvable riddle. When the disks of an electrostatic machine are rotated, a powerful spark between the two electrodes occurs only when there are metal spheres attached to their ends. If these spheres are removed, there will be no spark between the electrodes, or it will be barely noticeable. But the difference is that these are different kinds of electricity, and they differ not just in their external characteristics, they differ at the beyond quantum level. And our hypothesis gives an in-depth justification for the nature of electricity and its different kinds. Doesn't that remind you of anything? It's a good example for thinking people. Thanks to the hypothesis of a coil state of short waves, we understand that electricity is the same snakes in the coiled or linear state. There are many kinds of electricity. They're determined by the predominance of one or another type of snakes in their linear sequence. For example, when you comb your hair, static electricity is generated, which is represented by a certain predominant type of snakes. When magnets rotate, it's another type. In household outlets, alternating current is a third type of snakes. In batteries, the energy of chemical reactions is the fourth type. In an electrostatic machine, it is the fifth, and so on. And note that all types of electricity, just like the magnetic field, have the same first snake in the linear state, which carries a major part of information. We reserve the right to explain the understanding of how electricity works to those who will further investigate this issue. We have merely given an association and invite those who wish to understand the subject to investigate it on their own. Now, let's look from the perspective of the beyond quantum world at what's going on in an electrostatic machine when different kinds of electricity are used. As the disks of the electrostatic machine rotate, the brushes rub against their surfaces. As a result of the friction process, the snake tangles become untangled and form an electrostatic field. Some of the snakes start moving along the conductor as if along a riverbed, forming a directed movement of snakes along the electrodes. As long as there is static electricity, there are no tangles, just a flow of snakes. And in order for a discharge to appear, that is, for the snakes to interact, we need to create conditions where they can gather in tangles again. Such conditions are created by the shape of a sphere. By flowing around the spheres at the ends of the electrodes, the snakes close up on themselves, which contributes to the formation of tangles. In the space around the metal spheres, the snakes and tangles begin to accumulate. The snakes from tangles on one side begin to cling to tangles on the other side, and their massive collision occurs. As a result, the tangles become untangled, and the snakes are released. This is the discharge that we observe. We see a spark. Waves are emitted in the optical range, and we hear a sharp click, a sound shock wave. All of these manifestations arise as a result of interaction among the snakes. They simply transition from one state into another. Accordingly, when there are no metal spheres on the electrostatic machine, the snakes flowing along the electrodes cannot form any tangles, so they simply fly by without any interaction with each other. But in batteries and household outlets, there is a different kind of electricity. There, tangles move together with snakes in a linear state, and they interact with each other instantly. The tangle state is disrupted, and we observe a discharge and the accompanying phenomena. Therefore, this type of electricity does not need metal spheres to form tangles, because it actually flows in the form of tangles. Thus, we understand that the shape of a sphere creates the necessary conditions for transformation of the linear state of snakes into a coil state. That is, in fact, the shape of a sphere or a dome creates conditions for accumulation
notice the similarity with the domes of religious buildings, you are not mistaken. Ancient legends say that the first dome temples were built more than 24,000 years ago by the representatives of an extraterrestrial race known as the Apexians. They also created the first religion in the first dome-shaped structures for the purpose of collecting energy from humans, which is known as Vril. People gathered in those temples and prayed to the Apexians as gods. This was a process similar to what we have seen in the spheres of the electrostatic machine, where static electricity accumulated. In the temples, people's energy, Vril, flowed through the building into the domes, accumulated there, transformed into a coiled state, and was transmitted to the Apexians. The Apexians built structures of various forms in order to collect energy. Those could be pyramidal structures, or towers with pyramidal or dome tops, ending with a pyramidal spire. Many such ancient structures are considered to be places of power. The paradox is that those were places where power was taken away, not given. It is also quite interesting that to this day, such shapes of structures are mainly used for places where mass gathering of people, decision-making, and emotional outbursts take place. If you wanted to tell the story you just heard as a comic strip, how would you draw it? We will show you an ancient artifact that depicts this process as a comic strip. We see a temple structure with a portal above it, and a flying saucer at the top indicates that it is extraterrestrial. In those times, people couldn't know about such technologies. On the left, we can see people and an indication that they're giving away their energy. This is shown in the form of snakes flying away. On the right, we see two planets, and below them, representatives of an extraterrestrial race, the Apexians, who receive energy from humans. And it is clearly shown that humans fed not only the Apexians, but representatives of other extraterrestrial races as well. To this day, through our temples, we feed unknown creatures in the universe. If any of you doubts that we still worship them to this day, you shouldn't. What is unknown to us is not unknown to the priests. And this information has nothing to do with any religious feelings or emotions. This information is about the physics of processes. Thus, our hypothesis opens a new approach not only to physics, but also to the history of our humankind, and reveals certain cause and effect relations of the processes taking place in society nowadays.
Now, take another look at the symbolism of this coat of arms. It's not just a hat, as they tell us. The spiral cords represent the coiled states of waves that connect the alien saucer in two groups of pyramids. The pyramids signify the hierarchy of different social classes of people, from the lowest to the highest. The highest in this hierarchy are connected to an alien race called the Apexians, and all the energy converges towards them. It's a ritual action and a magical rite. They explicitly tell us that they collect tribute from us like foolish sheep, and it is not for the Almighty God, but for some beings in the universe. And now, take another look at Pope Francis's garments. Now the statement of Pope Jean Paul II becomes clear, who said that the Eucharist is a cosmic act. Yes, cosmic, because even when it is celebrated on the humble altar of a country church, the Eucharist is always in some way celebrated on the altar of the world. And of Pope Francis, who declared that extraterrestrials might even be closer to God than we humans are. In the newspaper published by the Vatican, an article titled "The Extraterrestrial is My Brother" appeared, written by Father Jose Gabriel Funes, the head of the Vatican Observatory. The Vatican is a place where every symbol holds deep meaning, from the architecture of the buildings to the clothing, accessories, and decorations. Everything has meaning. In the symbolism of the Vatican, we find references to pedophilia, Satanism, and even service to extraterrestrial beings. So, who is the true Lord of the Vatican and the popes? Whom do we follow?
Welcome back. You know, it's like I said in the beginning, sometimes the fiction is so prevalent that you really can't discern the fiction from the nonfiction in certain things. How many of these stories, how many of these rumors are true, only the Pope and the Vatican knows. Who can tell? There's been weirder stuff happen throughout our history. But that's all we got for you guys today. As always, take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. God bless you. God love you. We do. We'll see you out there.